Ladies and gentlemen, damas y caballeros, welcome to Between the Corners.
What's up, everyone, and welcome to the 9th episode of Between the Corners. I'm your host, Josue.
And I'm your co-host, Robert.
And today we have a great show. A lot of stuff to go over that happened this weekend, both in boxing and MMA. So let's go ahead and jump right into it, and we'll start with boxing.
Absolutely. Let's start with the face of boxing, Jake Paul.
Yep.
I kid, no way. Versus Mike Tyson. And look, I'll be honest, I know we kind of talked about this on the previous episode,
Mhm.
Where we said this, we already know this is more of a money grab. It's not the Mike Tyson. He's not the baddest man on the planet anymore.
Yeah.
I think we saw that on Friday as well. I think we saw exactly why.
Yeah, and honestly, from the videos of him training to what we saw, it was so different. It was so different, and I felt bad watching Mike Tyson in that how would you say it? In that way,
That form.
in that form. Yeah, I've seen him older, not being able to move his legs as good. What he did have good though was his
Yeah,
movement, right?
he did have pretty good lateral movement. That seemed to not go away, and I think his power was still there. He just obviously didn't really land any except in the first round. But aside from that, I think we saw what we thought we were going to see. I think a lot of us were hoping to see glimpses of the old
Yeah.
Mike Tyson, which the only glimpse that I saw of that was what you said, the side to side movement.
Mhm.
Other than that, he went from the baddest man on the planet to the saddest man on the planet. Like
Yeah.
it was bad to see, the Mike Tyson that I think a lot of us kind of look up to. It was crazy to see him in that form, like you said. And, I think what got me the most was after each round towards the, when he would walk back to his corner
Mhm.
and see him walk, it just reminded me, that's a grandfather,
Yeah.
a grandfather walking back to his corner. And, he looked like he was just out of it. I know after the fight, they kind of talked about the fact that, or both of them are saying that they didn't give it their all. I don't think that was the truth for Mike Tyson. I think Mike Tyson
Yeah.
did try. He just, he's 58 years old.
And as you mentioned also in the last episode, is like a lot of stuff starts diminishing when you're that age, and you can see that in the fight. Like in some of the movements that he did, like the lateral movements that he did, he ducked some punches, and because of that movement that he did, Jake Paul was open,
Mm-hmm.
but he just couldn't. Mike just couldn't pull the trigger, or
Yeah.
didn't like it was.
Didn't react.
Yeah,
like
yeah, he couldn't
normally would have.
Yeah, so yeah, that's something that you brought up that we can see in that fight. Now, with that being said, what are your thoughts on what people are saying? Like the same thing that I'm saying, people are actually saying that Mike Tyson was holding back because what they saw from like the training videos and vice versa. They're saying that Jake Paul was holding back. What do you think?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't think he was really holding back. I think he actually did give his all. It is possible that in his training, he may have exhausted himself. Like you got to think
Yeah,
about
that's
that too. Is the fact that training takes its toll on you, and when you're younger, that prepares you for a fight. When you're a little older, it can prepare you to a certain extent. But if he was trained the same as he was when he was younger, or even close, we can see that he was probably exhausted, and that's what it looked like to me. He never seemed to be like, fully energetic, and I don't know how much of that was age or overtraining.
Overtrained.
That could have been part
I
of it.
th-
I don't, but I personally, to answer your question, I don't think that he was holding back.
Do you think Jake Paul was holding back?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%. And, I'll say a couple of things about that. Number one, kind of crazy to see how they set that up when they were, Jake Paul sitting on the grass outside. Hey, do you think I could beat Mike Tyson? Come on. Like, sure, now you can, but, Mike Tyson, I would say even 20 years ago,
Oh yeah,
absolutely not.
of course.
You would get murdered by him. But, it was kind of crazy to see him, started off that way. I do think that Jake Paul definitely held back. And, at the very end, I will give him his props where he really could have hurt Mike Tyson,
Mhm.
and I'm glad he didn't. And this may not be a popular kind of opinion, but I give Jake Paul his props for giving Mike Tyson that opportunity, which, we don't know Mike Tyson's financial
Yeah,
situation. So this may have actually helped him. And I actually think that's what it was for. Obviously, we
correct.
knew it was a money grab. Mike Tyson over the years, and I'm not saying, whether or not you agree if he deserved it or didn't, maybe he blew off his money on things that he shouldn't have. I do think that it was nice of Jake Paul to do that. He didn't really hurt Mike Tyson like
No.
I think he could have.
Yeah, he didn't, and that's one thing that I was seeing. When I was watching the fights, is it looked like Jake Paul was holding back. The only time that I saw that Mike Tyson was holding back was online. That's the only time I saw a statement that way. I didn't think that. I thought the same thing. Jake Paul did show some mercy, even though Jake Paul is nice enough to say that he wasn't. It was kind of obvious, and another thing that you just mentioned that I didn't even think about, yeah, overtraining. I mean, think about even as we get older and we go to the gym, it takes us a little bit longer to recover, and that's just going to the gym.
Yep.
So imagine training for that long. You're beating your body up as an old man. Yeah, he
and,
was probably drained or
and you
hurt.
saw that story he came out with where he was talking about, I think, earlier this year when they had to reschedule the fight.
Oh
He
yeah,
almost died.
yeah.
He
Has had blood transfusions and stuff like that.
lost a lot of blood.
Yeah,
I think I don't think he fully recovered from that. I think the training videos that we also saw, they were meant to make him look good too, right? But again, I do think that a lot of this does point to overtraining. That's just my opinion.
yeah.
I think that was part of it. I don't think he held back. I think he was trying to give it his all. And you can see by some of the swings, and I think he's probably not being 100% honest with himself. I think he wants to think that he could do a lot more. You saw this comment after that. He doesn't think he wants to hang, or he doesn't want to hang them up yet.
Yeah.
Mike Tyson, please, man.
I mean, the only way that I see that he that he can get into another fight would be with another old person. If
yeah,
any
maybe we
other
can
old
have
boxers or fighters want to
we can
come
have
back,
another fight with Evander Holyfield.
yeah, boom. Somebody, I doubt he or Vander would want to, but yeah,
I mean, you make that's a pretty good point. He looked good against John Jones when he fought against him. Obviously not. Don't get
against
me
Roy
wrong.
Jones.
That's what I meant. Sorry,
You're getting ahead of yourself.
I'm getting out. We'll get to that later.
Yeah.
But when he fought Roy Jones Jr., I think he did it. He did well for his age at that time. Right. Again, this is not the same Mike Tyson as before, but
Yeah,
he did a lot better than what he did on Friday.
correct. And then you said, what's next for Mike or what Mike wants next. For Jake Paul, what do you think is next for him? There's a lot of names that always come out after he fights.
Well, as you saw, and everybody saw, everybody now is calling him out. A lot of
Yep.
fighters feel like he disrespected Mike Tyson.
The sport. A lot of
and
people
the
feel like
sport.
he disrespected the sport by doing that to Mike.
Yeah, I mean, again, Mike Tyson signed up for this too.
Yeah, of course.
So I see both sides of it. I get it. I'm a diehard boxing fan, and I'm not a fan of that fight, but I get it.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like
same.
I 100% get it.
Mm-hmm.
The other side of me, like the boxing side of it, however, I get the fighters who want to get back at him. Will he actually fight anybody with a pulse? I mean, most likely not. Andre Ward, I think, put his name out there. Berlanga was another one now that wants to fight Jake Paul. Better Beef.
Oh my God, I saw that Archer Beterbiev said. I think he called him out or said something about fighting Jake, and Jake, as much as people want to, see him as still that young, dumb guy that he used to be, he's not. He's a businessman now, and
absolutely.
and even if he, for some reason, wants to, I hope his team doesn't let him fight Beterbiev. Like out of all those fighters, why though? You want to see him hurt?
Look, he's been. You talked about disrespecting the sport. I get why he did it for Mike Tyson. He claims that he really, he trains, and Amanda Serrano has also backed up his claim that he's serious about boxing. So back it up.
Yeah,
he's licensed. He's fair game.
That's
true. I don't want him to get hurt. No, but you make these claims that
that's true.
You're the face of boxing. That you're like, then I think it is time that he faces an actual boxer. Yeah. He called out Canelo. Obviously, Canelo already turned that down. He said 3 words: "I'm not interested."
Yeah.
Literally what he said. I get it.
Yeah.
Canelo doesn't really need that kind of money. I can see a lot of fighters out there who would absolutely jump on it because number one, the disrespect that they felt towards Mike Tyson,
Mm-hmm.
and then number two, the money.
Yeah, and that's a lose-lose fight for Canelo, anyways.
Yeah,
You beat Jake Paul, cool. I mean, even though a lot of people
Actually
would
not.
praise him though for beating Jake Paul.
right. Because
Yeah.
if he was to beat Jake Paul in a fashion that would probably make Jake Paul think twice about getting in that ring with an actual boxer again,
Mhm.
some boxing fans may finally be happy. But, you know, this is again going to be a very unpopular opinion. Jake Paul does have power.
Yeah, but
It's going to be very tough to land on Canelo. He's not knocking out Canelo. Canelo hasn't been knocked out. And,
no.
um, I think I just want to kind of egg that fight or the
So,
better beef because I kind of already know the outcome. I mean, not kind. I know the outcome,
most
but
of us know the outcome. Yeah,
it still would be it would maybe put him in his place or shocker, maybe he shows us that he really is better than what we think.
yeah, and then another one that's not gonna happen that he mentioned was fighting Conor McGregor in MMA with no weight class. I mean, that is never going to happen. If it does, that would make a good bit of money, an entertaining fight, and I think Conor McGregor takes it, but we haven't seen Conor McGregor in a while, so who knows?
Yeah, yeah. I for one don't want to see that,
Mhm.
but
I would just because it would be fun, but yeah,
you're right. I would prefer to see the other ones first, or even entertaining that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's go ahead and move on to the co-main event of that evening. And it was with Amanda Serrano versus Katie Taylor. Man, that was a battle. That was a great fight.
That was, to me, in no disrespect to any other fights that I've seen or women fights, women boxing matches that I've seen, that was by far the most entertaining boxing match. With that said, I think what most people saw is kind of what I saw, which is the fact that Katie Taylor fights dirty. And I know Amanda Serrano at the end, she kind of addressed it. Her trainer did too. Then Amanda Serrano the next morning started, taking back what she said.
Yeah.
Amanda Serrano, I know you mentioned off camera, she's just too nice for her own good. Like no, don't take that back. She really didn't say a lot of bad things. It's just
I just said what it was.
she was I think she was frustrated, number one, at the fact that, Katie Taylor just kept coming in with her head and hitting her on the head. Like the gash that, she got on the head was an intentional, what I would consider an intentional headbutt.
Correct. Yeah. The first headbutt that actually cut her, that looked intentional. She led it with her head. The second headbutt that we saw, they showed the replay. That looked not intentional. They both were swinging, whatever. But then throughout the rest of the fight, she leads in with her head like that. It was so obvious, and I agree with her trainer, with Amanda's trainer. Like, where was the ref? Like, say something, do more, or Taylor could stop it. I know they took a point, but regardless, another thing, even with all that happening, I still think Amanda Serrano won the fight.
100%. I know a lot of people are gonna say, "Oh, it's if you look at the stats at the end, I think Amanda Serrano landed 107 more than Taylor did,
And threw more.
and threw more." Um, and I get it. It's not. It's not a. It's not about the total number of punches,
Mm-hmm.
but even if you look at the round by round, which I know CompuBox already posted the numbers, and I know a lot of people trying to discredit it. If you look at the round by round, you can see that she was outlanding Taylor in most of those rounds. The other side of that is, Cater had this thing where she would, she would throw a bunch of punches. If you look at the replay or you look at some of those punches,
Not much
most of
just
them didn't
landed.
land, or they landed on Serrano's gloves.
Yep.
There weren't many that landed, and I don't know if that's what threw the judges off, but it's kind of crazy to me that all three of them had the same score. I didn't see the judges' scorecard yet, like the round by
What
rounds,
Yeah.
but they all had the same score, even with the point deduction. That to me is crazy. I do think that was a robbery. I'll call it a robbery. I know several boxers have come out and say, "Oh, that wasn't a robbery." you need to stop being swayed. If anything, the commentary seemed to try to sway us that it was Katie Taylor doing a great job. You heard Roy Jones Jr.
Yeah.
kept saying, oh, look at Taylor then doing this, and I'm like, what? She's not. She's getting her ass beat. Like, I hate to say that. Like, she really was getting beat up, and anytime she would do, said I would do something good, Roy Jones seemed to like, kind of not discredit her, but not really call it out. But the minute Taylor did something, oh look, see, she's doing this, and then when they showed a lot of replays, it was kind of funny. You could see the replays, it was kind of like quiet because like, oh well, maybe she didn't land as good as I thought.
Yeah, no, and that was upsetting. And also another thing that Roy Jones said, when they were talking about the headbutting, he was like, I think they're both leading in with their head. No, it was obvious that only one of the fighters was leading in with the head, and that was Katie Taylor. And just like the trainer mentioned, this is how Katie Taylor usually fights. Like, there's a reason why, a lot of her opponents have gashes and stuff like that. It's not from her punching power, it's from her head. So that was annoying to see. And a lot of people are feeling like us as well. Even though there's some people saying that it wasn't a robbery, a lot of people are saying that it was a robbery. I agree with that 100%. I think it was a robbery. I think they stole that fight. The judges stole that fight from Amanda Serrano. And it's sad to see someone who's put so much into the sport of boxing. I mean, Amanda Serrano, like she mentioned, she doesn't have a dating life at all. She just got a phone recently, she said. She just gives so much to the sport of boxing. To see the judges, or to see boxing, because the judges represent boxing, to see boxing take that away from her, it's sad to see. It's so sad to see. I feel for her. That's why like we said off camera, I wish she wasn't so nice. Like, I know I wouldn't be, I try to be respectful, but I would still say my piece. And I mean, yeah, I don't know how she keeps her cool. So props to her for that. But man, like, I wish she had some of her trader's attitude in her, because man, that was annoying to see. It was annoying to see. Um, but yeah, I mean, it seems like MMA is gonna be her next step. She did mention something about meeting Katie Taylor and MMA. I don't think Katie Taylor would do that, but I think Amanda wants to fight in MMA a little bit more.
I think that may have been a diss towards Taylor, the fact that she was using her headbutting so
Ah,
much. That's what it seemed like. At least that's the context that I took it in. Like, the fact that she was using her head so much. Hey, maybe we should meet in the MMA and see how well you do there, right?
yeah.
But yeah, I don't know if I want her to be exactly or even some of her trainer. I'm not a big fan of her trainer, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah, no, that's just a little bit of his attitude. Yeah, but no, I know.
One last thing I'll say about
Uh-huh.
that fight, I think it's very telling, and I was telling you this before, very telling that when they asked Katie Taylor about a potential third fight, her response is that she was open to it. That is not something that you normally would hear from somebody who, if they felt so sure that they actually won, and you saw her face, like she
Yeah.
thought she lost the fight at the end. She was surprised that they gave her the decision. Um, but that was not a response that you would see from somebody if they thought that they had beat the other person, right? She said she was 100% open to it. If she thought she won both fights, or even just this one fight, that's two fights already. Her response would have been something to the effect of, "Why do we need to do it a third time? I've already beaten her twice." But I think even she knows that she was gifted an early Christmas present.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm gonna play the other side. I'm gonna be the other side. Another thing that probably why she said that, though, it's probably not because she thought she lost. She probably also said that because that's the biggest money fight. She made good money. I'm sure both these fights, probably more than she's ever made. That's probably why she said, "Yeah, we can do it again. Shoot, the money's good." But yeah, no, I agree with you as well. Though I don't. It didn't seem like she thought she won at the end either.
Yeah. So, and going back to the punch stats, and I promise this will be the last thing. If you look at the round by round, Amanda outlanded Katie Taylor in 9 out of the 10 rounds. Think about that for a second. Now, some of those were somewhere close, and when I say some, only two. So, in two of those rounds, she outlanded 15-14, and in another round, she outlanded 16-13. Everything else, she outlanded by a decent margin.
Robbery.
Yep, absolutely. And it's, if we look at the power punches, that I think there's even a bigger disparity there.
Well, all right. Well, let's stop talking about that. Another fight that we'll talk about, which is the last fight that we'll talk about of that night, is going to be Mario Barrios versus Abel Ramos. That was a pretty good fight. It was
What a fight!
entertaining. Yes, it was a
What an
great fight.
entertaining fight, and I think it was a good lead up, given the fact that the main card was Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul, and obviously we wanted to see Mike Tyson, but Abel Ramos, he absolutely, I mean, he went in there with a game plan, and he was not there. He wasn't going to lay down.
Nope.
Barrios was obviously the favorite overall, and also the fact that he was in the state of Texas. He's from San Antonio,
Mm-hmm.
so I think even though it ended in a split draw, it still was an upset.
Yeah, they were expecting Barrios to go in there and beat him like easily. He was definitely the favorite, but Ramos said not today. Barrios knocked him down though first, if I'm not wrong.
Yep,
Barrios knocked
yep.
him down first, so it looked like it was gonna be the night that people thought it was, that Barrios was gonna beat him, but Ramos got his back, knocked him down, and then Jake. Again, it was just a great fight to watch. It was a back and forth fight. I agree with the draw decision. I don't think any of them got robbed. The judging though, I think one of the judges scored it for, I forgot who he scored it for, but it was like way off. 116 to 110 if I'm not mistaken. Come on, Texas. Which
Yeah.
a lot of people have said that Texas has horrible judging. I see
Now
that.
I see why people don't like. A lot of fighters have refused to come fight in Texas.
Yeah.
And it sucks because this is our state, right? But it there's a lot of truth to that. There have been a lot of bad decisions here. But man, going back to that fight, what a fight! That was nonstop action.
Mhm.
For better or for worse, right? For better for the entertainment of the fans, and for worse for some of us that like to see the the technical aspect of boxing, right?
Yeah.
Mario Barrios seems to have declined with his defense. He did, to me, defensively, he did a lot better when he fought Tank. He ended up getting knocked out, I think, with a body shot against Tank many years ago, but definitely not defensively minded, in my opinion, against Ramos. Ramos took advantage of that, and
Yeah.
all props to him too. I actually saw some people, making the case that Ramos may have taken that one, and I can see that. I can see kind of both sides of it. Like
Yeah.
you said, there was nothing, completely decisive, but it was, I could see the side. It was still a good fight.
Boxing fans won. That's for sure.
Absolutely, 100%.
All right, so yeah, that was I said that was the last fight that we would talk about of that night, but there is another fight that I want to talk about of that night, and that is going to be Netflix versus the streaming service or the streaming
Versus
capability.
customers.
Yeah, Netflix versus customers.
Man, horrible. I hope they never allow Netflix to do this again. And I'm sorry, I know people will point at the fact that, well, maybe they weren't prepared. Maybe there was you're Netflix, and I'm
Yeah.
sure there was a lot of preparation that went behind this, and not enough apparently.
I was gonna say, I don't know. I don't know. There was a lot after seeing that.
Maybe it wasn't
Enough.
but we've seen fights on Prime. They did a good job.
Yeah.
Terrible with Netflix.
Yeah, if they don't say or show that they fixed, their streaming capability when it comes to live, huge live events like this, I doubt any other promotion will want to do business with them, because that was such a horrible experience for so many. I don't think I've talked to anyone that watched that night that didn't have a horrible experience.
Absolutely. Across the country and even across the globe, a lot of people complain that service was just really bad. Mainly in the US, though, is what I saw. Mainly. I saw a few outside of the US, but it seems to have impacted mostly people in the US. And it didn't only impact the live stream. Some people were also impacted
Watching regular Netflix.
because of the bandwidth that this took. So, I don't think that they prepared properly. I think I would assume that they have prepared a lot, just not enough.
Yep, that is correct. Even though they were prepared to see Mike Tyson's cheeks, they didn't buffer on that.
That is funny. Yeah, that's funny.
I mean, he's at that age, when we go to if you go to the public or commercial gym, it's the older people walking around not caring, just letting everything hang out, and that's what Mike Tyson was doing. So
That's
ain't no-
also on the cameraman.
yeah,
Like he has the cameraman woman.
yeah.
They have a view of what's going on behind the camera. They didn't have to show that,
They
but
didn't have to, but they did, and,
you know,
that's one of the big talks of that night as well.
I guess Netflix must have told them, hey, let's take some of the steam away from the terrible streaming and let's put the focus on that, on the
Oh god.
cheeks.
All right, so that was it for Friday night boxing. Let's go ahead and move on to Saturday night boxing. The main event of that night was Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez versus CBS Chris
Willem Smith.
Billum Smith. I always forget the B part. All right, so that fight, I mean, it was a good. I liked the fight. It was one sided, but I liked it.
Very entertaining, and I think it definitely was one sided eventually because it didn't start so one sided.
Yeah, you're right.
CBS did catch El Zurdo, but I think Zurdo was just trying to warm up. I think he caught El Zurdo a little cold. After that, it was El Zurdo show. What I will say is, man, what a chin on CBS, and what an even bigger heart. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. My goodness, several times CBS could have just said, "This is it," and I would have understood. Like I know a lot of people like to give fighters a lot of flack for saying, I can't anymore, but he was taking some punishment, took some blows, and he was giving it right back. Obviously not at the same pace and at the same, I would say, even power, but man, did he land some too. And if I would say anything, any criticism of El Zurdo is that he did get hit too much. I think CBS's punches, his power, definitely decreased as the fight went on. I think if El Zurdo was to fight some of the other champions or even better beef if he decides to move up too, he can't get hit like that.
No, but yeah, so seeing that fight, I mean, one of the more impressive things for me was the El Zurdo's movements. So the way he would move side to side, get the different angles. He wasn't just going forward like some people do and staying in the line of fire. He was actually getting the different angles, being very successful. Um, I don't know how Chris survived that. The punches that he was getting hit with and the amount of punches he was getting hit with, I was actually kind of like, I don't know if you heard me or not, but while I was watching the fight, I was hoping that his corner would stop it, just because he's a young guy and he was taking so much damage by El Zurdo. Um, so props to El Zurdo. I know a lot of people were talking so much about Chris's heart, which yes, amazing, big, humongous heart, a warrior spirit. But you gotta give it to El Zurdo too. Great performance by him. Like people were saying, he was moving like he was still, in a lighter weight class. But it seemed at least that he had the power of a cruiserweight with the how much damage he was giving to Chris.
Yeah, no, I agree. I would like to see him. A lot of people were saying they would like to see him against Better Beef, have Better Beef move up. I would like to see him unify against Jay Opataya. I think that would be a really good fight for both of them. I think in my opinion, they need each other.
Yeah,
I think this would be really good for boxing, and that would unify 3 of the 4 titles. So
that'd be awesome to see. Who do you think would win that?
hard to say.
Because the styles, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The edge, I would say, kind of goes to Opataya, and I know a lot of people would probably disagree. Ramirez has been in there with some of the top fighters, Bivol. They're at a lower weight class. It looks like he's moving up. I would say, I'll say this: Opataya to me is a slight favorite.
Yeah.
But El Zurdo showed, I think, that he could definitely stand in there with him, and I think it would just be interesting. I would say when I say that he has a slight edge, to me, it's like 51-49.
Yeah.
Like, that's the kind of edge that I'm talking about. It's, styles make fights, and I think that they both have an interesting style that could be detrimental for the other one.
Yep. So now that would be a fun fight to see. So hopefully they'll make it happen. Seems like all signs are pointing to that being the next fight for them, for Zurdo. So yeah, that would be entertaining. Another fight of that night, which was the co-main event, which was Cepeda. What's his first name again?
I think it's William Cepeda.
William. Yep. William Cepeda versus
Tevin Farmer.
Tevin Farmer. That fight, I mean, people thought that Cepeda was just going to run over Farmer, or some people thought. There were some people that know Farmer that were like, nah.
Yeah, I think, if we, at least the forums that I look at online and some of the groups that I'm in, a lot of people actually thought Farmer was going to outbox Cepeda.
Mhm.
And he almost did, to be honest. And, I think, he dropped Cepeda. He actually dropped Cepeda.
Yeah.
I forget which round it was, but he, I think Farmer has nothing to be ashamed of. I do think that the right person won, but it was definitely a close fight, even, with Cepeda landing so much, especially because he warmed up after, a couple of rounds. And man, what was it? Over 1,000 punches in 10 rounds?
How do you do that? Like, how are your arms not like falling off after that? That's crazy. His endurance is second to none. Being able to throw that many punches in one fight, in one 10-round fight, like you just said.
Is he ready for Stevenson?
No, I don't think so. There was so many holes in his game. Yes, the volume is there, but he's one of those that I'm like earlier, like I mentioned, that El Zurdo wasn't. El Zurdo wasn't just going straight and punching. He was actually getting angles that Cepeda wasn't. Cepeda just goes straight at you, throws punches, keeps his hands low. Like, he got hit a lot by Farmer. So if it's somebody that has more power, somebody that's a better boxer and faster, like Stevenson is, or it was another name, Tank Davis, that was thrown in there. Like, Tank would put him to sleep. Stevenson will probably put him to sleep, but definitely would win the fight.
Yeah, I don't think Stevenson would put him to sleep, in my opinion. But I do agree that Stevenson, if the Stevenson that we became accustomed to shows up, I think he would outbox him handedly. Only because I did see Tevin Farmer do that at first. Tevin Farmer, I don't know if he has more power than Shakur. Shakur, in the last few fights, he hasn't done very well.
Yeah.
So, and all of that could have pointed towards the level of opposition that he was facing too. Perhaps that didn't, he didn't fight like he normally did because he knew that they were, not at his level, but he didn't have good showings the last two fights. With that said, I do think that if we get the Stevenson that we've seen before, I think he would outbox Cepeda easily. Don't think he would get the knockout though. Against Tank, absolutely. I think Cepeda would knock himself out by running into one of Tank's punches. Doesn't really have very good defense.
And Tank, that's one of Tank's specialty, is setting stuff up and then
setting traps.
Yeah, setting traps and countering. And Cepeda is very, very susceptible to that, as we saw. That's how Farmer got him.
Yep. I think another probably didn't throw as much. And I know he was coming up in weight. Leo Santa Cruz, but he threw a lot of punches too. He was a pressure fighter, and we saw what Tank did to him. I think Cepeda would end up the same way. I think he would get knocked out by Tank, especially seeing how Farmer was able to knock him down. Granted, it was more of a flash knockdown. He didn't really seem to be hurt.
Yeah,
but he still got knocked down with, a fighter that doesn't have nearly the same power as Tank.
Correct. Yeah, so I mean, we'll see. I mean, of course, if Cepeda does fight Stevenson or whatever, like you said before, sometimes it takes those bigger fights to make a fighter move, go up to that level, that other gear that they didn't know that they had, and perform way better. So maybe that'll happen for Cepeda. Maybe the defense will be there. Maybe that's something that they saw that they need to work on, and they will work on it.
Maybe.
All right, and another fight that happened that night, a great fight, and of course we were rooting on him since he's one of our countrymen.
Islandman,
right? 'Cause it's not a country. That's what had me. That's what stopped me a little bit because I was like, wait, I don't think it's countrymen. Our islandmen from Puerto Rico. We had Oscar Collazo versus
Knockout CP Freshmart.
Knockout CP Freshmart. What a name! If you don't know, people from Thailand, correct? A lot of times they take the name of their sponsor. So that's what that is. That's not his birth name. That is his sponsor name. So that's what his name was in the fight. But yeah, I guess Knockout was his name because that's what happens to him.
Actually, I was going to mention that as the fact that it's kind of funny to have that name, and you're 26. At the time, he was 26-0, 26-1 now after the knockout with 9 KOs. Now, granted, not saying he didn't have any power because, he did seem to have some power, but that seems like such a mismatch.
Yeah.
It's crazy, and maybe there just isn't that much opposition at the minimum weight, 105 pounds, but it didn't seem like they should have been in the ring together. They were, and I've said this before, I don't like using this too much, but they were absolutely on different levels. Now, granted, a lot of people will point, and they may have a point. Knockout CP Freshmart, 34 years old. I forget how old Goyaso is. 27 years old. So, there is a 7-year gap there. And once you pass that 30-year mark, not for everybody ages differently, but sometimes you can see, people start slowing down. Either way, I don't see how any version of knockout CP Freshmart would have beaten Goyaso. Goyaso is definitely getting better every time I see him.
Yes.
He definitely has been training. I've seen him online, and he shows a lot about how he's training. While other people are out here showing, being flashy and showing how they are after the Canelo fight. But anyway,
Wonder who you're talking about. Let's not mention that name anymore. Anyways, keep going.
But Goyaso, very humble, and you can see that his hard work is paying off.
Oh yeah, he broke CP Freshmart down like that fight. Like it was impressive to see. A lot of people thought that it was going to be a closer fight because of Goyaso not having as many fights. But man, he, like you said, way different level. You can tell that they were in a way different level from each other, and he of course wants to be the what's it called, the undisputed champ at 105. I don't know too much about that weight class, but I feel like he could definitely make that happen.
Yeah, if Knockout CP Freshmart was a champion, anybody else is on that same level, it's gonna be an easy weight class for Goyaso.
If I'm not wrong, he was a champ for like 8 years. That's what they said or something like that.
I think he was the
He was a
longest
champ
reigning.
for
I
a
think he had
while.
13. I don't know if it was 13 title defenses or that he was a champion for 13 years. But
Okay, yeah, that's crazy. And then for Goyaso to go in there and make him look the way he did, that's just props to Goyaso being that good. So yeah, looking forward to see what he does in the future, and of course, once he starts, maybe he'll start growing and going into these other weight classes. He'll be a contender for the titles at those weight classes as well.
yeah, actually, he has been a champion since 2012.
What's his name? CP
CP
Freshmart.
Freshmart.
Oh, okay.
12 years.
12 years. Wow. Not no more. All right, guys. So that was the boxing for Friday night and Saturday night. So some good things, some not so good things, but still an entertaining night for boxing.
Absolutely.
Now let's go ahead and move on to MMA. Of course, we had UFC 309 this weekend. We had the main event. We'll jump right into the main event. We had John Jones versus Stipe Miocic. John Jones has proved again why he's the GOAT, as most people would say. What he's the greatest of all time that's currently still doing his thing.
Absolutely. And man, did he make that look easy.
Did.
I know a lot of people will point at the fact, and you actually had pointed at this too. Stipe had been out of the game for too long, and you would give him a chance had it been anybody else except John Bones Jones. And boy, again, he made that look easy. Yes, there were some interesting moments when Stipe landed here and there, but never seemed to really rock John Bones Jones.
Mm-hmm.
And Jones just seemed to have, every answer for Stipe. And in fact, it almost seemed like Jones was just having fun in there, taking his time.
Yeah.
And that's part of his game plan, right? He doesn't really try to rush. He knows how to find his opportunities. And I really, I haven't seen anything from Stipe, but that looked like that crushed his ribs.
Oh yeah,
That kick. Whew.
yeah, spinning kick.
I woke up with my ribs hurting from that.
Yeah, and he was taking a lot of body damage with front kicks and everything like that from Jones. So Jones, that was obviously the game plan. He even mentioned it that he knows Stipe is a tough dude. Like his head is massive. Like he mentioned that when he went in there, he saw his head. That was the main thing that he saw. And even when he took him down in the first round with an awesome takedown, by the way.
Relative ease. Too.
Yes. When he took him down, was elbowing him. Stipe just got like one little cut. Those elbows would have slashed other people. Stipe is a tough guy, and he hung in there. He took the ground and pound like not many people would. But yeah, John Jones, he had a game plan. He knew that he wasn't going to be able he more than likely wasn't going to be able to knock him out, you know, but the body was susceptible, and it showed. Even though Stipe was in great shape,
he did his thing again. And like you said, this showed why he is the greatest of all time for MMA, at least to this date.
Yeah, and Stipe Miocic at the end, he did retire. He said that he's hanging up the gloves. And you can tell after that fight, he didn't want to, he didn't look like he wanted a future in fighting anymore. He's done his thing. I'm pretty sure he's gonna be in the Hall of Fame for what he's done in heavyweight. And then yeah, 2 back-to-back losses to big names, of course, but still 2 back-to-back losses. You could tell he's just not in it. And then John Jones, very interesting future for him. So 2 names that are out there, of course, is Alex Pereira and Tom Aspinall. A lot of people are saying that Jones is ducking Aspinall, and it does seem that way. It really does. And even John Jones is telling people or saying to the media and to Dana White that he's not going to fight Aspinall unless he is compensated a lot, like life-changing money. He basically said, and he doesn't want to. He said he doesn't really want to fight a young, hungry fighter. Which, I mean, I get it, but at the same time, you hold the belt. With that being said, he even mentioned that he doesn't care about the belt. He can give the belt they can take the belt from him and give it to Aspinall. He doesn't care. And he's done so much already in the sport. I feel like this is why he feels like I don't agree with what he's doing and saying, but he's done so much. He's already built up a legacy. Now he's just fighting for the money and the big fights because that's what he wants. He wants to fight with Pereira. That doesn't pose that much risk because the Aspinall fight would be huge. Will make great numbers. Honestly, a lot of people are saying it'll be the biggest heavyweight fight ever, but the risk is higher. Honestly, like even Dana White said, and this is what I think also. Like I said in the last episode, John Jones would beat Pereira. John Jones' skill set is broader than Pereira's, and John Jones is broader than Pereira. He's a bigger dude. So I see why he wants the Pereira fight. It'll be a super fight, but it's a lot safer for John Jones. So I root for John Jones because I like his fighting, his skills. And I want him to fight Aspinall to prove to people that he can beat a younger, hungrier, what people think is the guy to beat him. I want John Jones to do that. Will he? We'll see.
Yeah, I saw where John Jones was saying that he thinks Aspinall is an asshole who is annoying. And like you said, he wants FU money to fight him.
Yeah.
Dana White, he absolutely wants that fight next.
He does.
And said that he would be properly compensated. So we'll see. John Jones has also mentioned that Tom Aspinall lacks notoriety, that he's not well known. But Dana White says this will be the biggest fight. I don't think it would be the biggest fight ever for the UFC, only because
in heavyweight. He says the biggest fight in heavyweight is what he mentioned.
It would be the biggest fight. I don't know if it would be the most popular, only because Tom Aspinall, unless you really watch UFC, his name just isn't out there as much.
but he has a country behind him.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not saying that
Yeah.
it would and Dana White is right. It would be the biggest in heavyweight because it's John Jones
Yeah.
and Aspinall. But I would like to see him against either one. So we talked about this off camera, and after you and I kind of discussed, I agree. I would like to see him against Aspinall first. That's obviously the bigger challenge for him.
Mm-hmm.
But if he was to take a Pereira fight first and then Aspinall, hey, let's do it.
But let's go ahead and move on to an exciting co-main event. We knew it was going to be good. And it was. We had
the WWE match between Oliveira and Chandler.
Charles Oliveira versus Michael Chandler. Yeah, no, it was a good fight. Honestly, though, I mean, Oliveira showed that he was still, he won the first one for a reason. But he won this one differently. He actually went back to his ground game more, taking Chandler down several times, hitting him, taking his back, almost submitting him several times.
But Chandler proved why he is a tough FOB.
Yep.
My goodness. He took some punishment. He, like you said, he was almost submitted several times, and then he still came back. He's one tough person, man. I gotta give him props, and I thought Oliveira was gonna stop him. That didn't happen, but man, what a fight!
Yeah, what a fight! And yet, like you said, props to Chandler. He defended, even though Oliveira is super dangerous, having people's back. Chandler defended it. He didn't
squatted him.
Yeah, which brings us to another thing, though. Chandler, when he hurt Oliveira, I think it was the 5th round. This is a huge controversy of the refereeing in that fight, because Chandler was hitting him in the back of the head, and a lot of people are saying, I know during the fight I was pointing out, I was like, why is the ref not doing anything? It was a lot of punches to the back of the head, and as a ref, I mean that's a dangerous, especially in boxing. I feel like it's more dangerous because of the gloves and how the impact, is broader in the back of the head. But still, you can really, really hurt someone and mess someone up by hitting them in the back of the head. Which even Dana White said that the refereeing was questionable in that fight. So yeah, that's something that shouldn't have been happening. Chandler did fight, pretty dirty doing that. I'm sure he knew, but at the same time, he's a fighter. He's in a fight. He hurt the guy, and he wants to get him out of there because he was losing the fight. So I get it. That's when the ref needs to do his job and stop that from happening or take a point, whatever the case may be. But
I agree.
Ref needed to do something. And yeah, just like you mentioned, WWE style ending. That was entertaining to watch. I don't think I've ever seen something like that.
Slammed him.
Yeah.
Twice. Not once, but twice. The next thing that he should have done was really get up on the cage with his hand and, Undertaker style.
Yeah. No, Triple H was there watching, so I'm
That's
sure
right. He was making him proud.
He was making him proud.
Triple H probably told him to do that.
Yeah, man. And speaking of the people in the fads, we had a great a great amount of notable names. You had, of course, President-elect Donald Trump, Kid Rock, Robert Kennedy. You had, who else was there? Elon Musk. Several other names that I'm missing because there was tons of stars at Madison Square Garden. So that was pretty cool to see as well. And then another fight that I want to mention fairly quick was the Bo Nickel versus Paul Craig fight. This was a fight that a lot of people thought was going to be a ground game fight, but it didn't really go to the ground. They were worried about going to the ground, so they stay standing up. Not very eventful. Bo Nickel did get the win. Not impressive. The fans were booing, chanting overrated. He's still a young guy moving up, so he just has some things to work on. I feel like this was a learning experience. Go back to the drawing board. Kind of work more on your stand-up. Work on that killer instinct as well, because he did hurt Paul Craig, and he didn't go for the finish. I feel like that was the moment where you could have redeemed the whole fight and got a finish, and people would have been saying a whole different, talking about a whole different story after the fight. So, yeah, still, Bo Nickel's young, still has a lot to learn. This was a great step up. Let's keep it going, for Bo Nickel and his team. All right. So fun weekend.
Very
Fun
fun.
weekend of fighting.
A lot of interesting fights, interesting events. You know, we had WWE, we had Netflix that apparently was not so much of a streaming service after how many years?
Yeah, well, live streaming.
Live streaming is not their thing,
is
apparently.
not their thing. No, but locker room butt cheeks are. All right, guys. So that is all. Like we always say here, of course, like, comment, subscribe, and share. Follow us on all of our social media platforms on Instagram and on TikTok. It is Between the Corners Pod, and on X, Between Corners. So yeah, thank you all for the support for everybody who's already
Gracias.
following.
Gracias.
Gracias.
Merci.
Merci.
Obrigado.
Obrigado.
Grazie.
Grazie.
Kamsamnida.
Kamsamnida. There you
And
go.
thank you.
And I already said thank you.
You said it. I didn't.
That's true. All right, guys. So God bless you all. Love you all. And see y'all next week. Pasa afuera.